What's going on, everybody? It's Core here, and today we're going to talk about the vehicles of Cyberpunk 2077. Now, this is a game I've never covered on the channel before because I didn't see that many juicy pieces of information regarding the game that would make for an interesting video. But since a few days ago, CD Projekt Red revealed more information about the vehicles we'll get to drive in the game, obviously stuff like the cars and the motorcycles and the trucks, I thought I'd make a video discussing them because from what I've seen so far, this looks really awesome. So I also wanted to cover the cars in Cyberpunk from the perspective of a fan of video games like most people have, but also from the perspective of a car enthusiast. Because I don't think I've seen enough videos on the internet covering the cars of Cyberpunk from the perspective of a car enthusiast like I'm about to do. So let's go ahead and get started with the vehicle classes that we'll be able to acquire in the game. In Cyberpunk 2077, we'll be able to drive a total of 5 different vehicle classes. These are Economy, Executive, Heavy Duty, Sport, and Hypercars. And the names are pretty self-explanatory. You know, Economy cars are the tiny, cheap cars you can find in the poorer districts of the game's map, which is Night City. The executive cars are the big luxury limousines that you'd buy if you're, a slightly better off in the world of Cyberpunk 2077. They're mostly for the richer people. We'll get to the cars for the rich people in a little bit. And from what I've seen from the design of the executive cars, they all seem to be inspired by full-size American sedans from the 1970s and the 1980s. You know, the Chevy Caprice and the Cadillac Broms and so on, and they all seem to be very cool. After that are the heavy duty. These are all the trucks and what would seem like armored personnel carriers that we can drive as well. And I believe the pickup trucks fall into this category, but don't take my word on it. And these cars are claimed in the trailer to be fully unstoppable. You can just plow through anything you want, but I'm pretty sure that because a lot of them are manufactured by the game's tyrannical villain corporations, I think they'll be quite difficult to acquire, but we'll have to see. Next up is the Sport class. These are all the sportier cars, and they include one of my favorite cars in the game. This class includes one of my favorite cars in the game, the Quadra Type 66. We'll get onto that in a little bit. And the Sport class in general includes a lot of really cool stuff, like this thing resembling an extended Pontiac Fiero, or this, which looks like a Ford RS200 of some type, at least according to the Internet Game Cars database. And finally, we have the Big Daddy class, the Hypercar class. So, despite being called the Hypercar class, it actually contains a limousine, which is called the Herrera Outlaw. It's actually in the thumbnail of my Explaining My Absence video. And it looks really cool. Like, I'm very interested in the concept of a 4-door hypercar, and it just looks really awesome. And if I ever get the game, which it won't be soon, because I should probably mention at this point that you're not going to be seeing Cyberpunk 2077 videos on my channel anytime soon, because my computer can't run the game. I mean, probably it could in theory if the game is optimized enough, but it'll probably run like and I won't be able to play it that much, let alone film videos on it. And that's about it for the car classes, so let's move on to the next part, the details of these cars. So, there's only 29 distinct vehicle models that we can drive in Cyberpunk 2077, which might seem like a bad thing at first. It actually is the same number of cars that you can drive in Need for Speed Underground 2, believe it or not. But one of the main reasons why there's so few cars in Cyberpunk is because of their incredible attention to detail. For example, every single one of these cars has a cockpit view, as in a fully detailed interior. And it's not just, copy and paste the predetermined selection of 10 interiors like Grand Theft Auto 5, for example. They all have their own unique, completely distinct interior designs. And they are suitably futuristic, but at the same time, they are still planted in the current day because they all use steering wheels and they have, PRNDS gears and so on if they have automatic transmissions, which I think they all do. And, there's a perfect marriage, if you will, of futuristic and current day. So, going back to the Quadra Type 66 again, it looks like a futuristic interpretation of the AMC Javelin. and it's easy to see that it was inspired by a classic car from, well, in the case of the game, it would be over 100 years ago. But then it also has all these cool futuristic touches, like what have to be the coolest doors I've ever seen on any car in a video game, or maybe even real life. Just look at this. Those of you who follow me on Twitter know that I found these doors to be so cool, I posted a GIF of them on Twitter twice. That's how cool they are. And also a unique little feature of the hypercars is, I don't exactly remember what they called this feature, but they seem to not have any windows on the exterior, but these are actually screens. When you go inside the car and start it up, they display the outside world as if they were windows, but no one can see you inside the car from the outside, which is a very cool little feature and fitting of the kind of people in Night City that would own a hypercar. Also interesting to note, all these cars run on a biofuel that this game calls CHOO2. Technically, it's spelled CHOOH2, so it's like a chemical formula pun. But interestingly, that's not the actual chemical formula of the biofuel. And that's what all the cars in Cyberpunk run on. It's made from some kind of plant. There's a whole write-up of the biofuel in the game's lore. I will link an article explaining the biofuel in the description. And that's about it for the details of the cars. A lot of attention to detail has gone into making them. Then we have the sounds of the cars in the game. Now, what's really interesting here is that all the sounds were actually captured from real cars. There's a video where CD Projekt Red goes into detail about all the cars they used to capture the sounds. There was a huge variety of cool stuff. There was a Lexus LFA and an LC500 as well. There was a rally car of some sort and some kind of off-road buggy looking thing. It's really awesome to see attention to detail like this, in the sense that the developers are using real cars to film the sounds for the cars in game. Finally, we have to mention that there's also a real-life car appearing in the game. It's the 1977 Porsche 911 Turbo. I believe it's the same generation that appears in the recent Need for Speed games, the OP one. And that's also a really cool thing, that they got real automakers to appear in Cyberpunk 2077, and the Porsche in this case is owned by the villain, Johnny Silverhand, played by Keanu Reeves, the legend himself.
You're breathtaking!
And finally, we get onto that little detail that I haven't seen anybody mention about these cars, and that's the fact that most of them are asymmetrical. Let me explain what I mean. So take a look at this tiny little Vanguard city car. See how it only has one headlight off-center? A big amount of examples in Cyberpunk with cars not being symmetrical. And this is a cool little attention to detail, because I don't think I've ever seen fictional cars in video games or movies messing around with asymmetrical design. So this is an awesome thing to see. It definitely gives a new twist on virtual car design for cars to appear in virtual media like video games, or even maybe in the future TV shows, cartoons, and so on. So I think it's really cool that we're allowed the opportunity to drive all of these different interesting cars in the world of Cyberpunk. It definitely makes the gearhead in me happy, and I believe it makes all the other gearheads happy. It's awesome to see that even though this is a game that's not strictly focused around the cars, and a game that's not made by a developer who is an expert in racing games. They haven't done that as of yet. This amount of attention to detail is definitely cool, and I hope that when eventually I get a Cyberpunk 2077, I will be able to show you and demonstrate to you all these cars and get a feel for them myself, and take a look at all the amazing attention to detail and all the cool features that they offer. So that's about it for the cars of Cyberpunk 2077. Let me know what you guys think of them in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.